Hello, and you're listening to David Campese talking rugby with my mates. Today we're very fortunate to have the Wallaby coach, Mr. Michael Cheika. I played with at Randwick for many, many years, and he ended up playing in Italy, coaching in Italy, coaching in France, coaching in Ireland, and obviously this is a massive year with the Rugby World Cup. So, Check, I'll call you. How are you going?
I'm very well, mate.
And how are things going with you preparation-wise for the World Cup?
They're going well, actually. You know, there's been a lot of outside noise, but we're pretty focused on what we need to do. So we've had, we'll get into the good bit soon, which is actually coaching. You know, we'll have the players coming in. End of Super Rugby players will start coming in. But we've done a fair bit of work with them over the Super Rugby season. So, yeah, looking forward to it. I think we'll kick it up a level when we start training, yeah.
Okay, cool. We might just go back to your background's obviously Lebanese. How did you get into rugby?
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be our demographic now, rugby, for the Lebanese kids, I suppose. But first of all, I think it started with my old man. You know, when he first arrived here, they plonked him at Redfern, you know, I suppose, where all the other Lebs were. So there was he lived there for a fair while, and rugby league, I suppose, became a bit of an interest point for him, never having played or never seen it at all. And then he moved out to Coogee later on, and I grew up playing a bit of union, bit of league, and then went to a rugby league school. So played league pretty much consistently there. But it's funny, so my brother went to the same school. Principals changed when I came, so they played rugby before, and then with the principal change when I arrived at the school, so we played league. And then we always just lived up the road from Coogee Oval, and slowly but surely it took my interest, yeah.
Yeah, because I did speak to Paul, and he said that he sort of said to you to come and have a game of rugby.
Yeah.
Paul obviously played at Randwick. He was a prop, and Michael played number 8. So, well, what was the family? Were they happy that you played? You went from league to rugby, or was it hard for your dad to sort of now gone from a league sort of environment to a totally different game?
No, my old man was an expert in all sports, having never played any of them, right? So,
like my dad.
Exactly. So he was telling me what to do, whether it was league or union or cricket or whatever, you know, and which was always good fun, because to have their support when you're playing, and when I say support, I don't mean cheering, I mean driving you from one field to another, and you know, dropping you for a feed with your mates afterwards, then picking you up, and all that type of stuff that he did. So no, he was a pretty gentile man, but he certainly liked the fact that rugby was a contact sport, and it gave us a chance to get out there and, you know, I think meet a different group of people that I would have met normally as well. And then, you know, my mum, she never come too much. I usually got sent off when she turned up, so she was never allowed to come, you know what I mean? So, but she came to the big games. It was really interesting about the different cultures. So I had some relatives come in from Brazil one time, and it was the year we played against New Zealand in 88, and he came to the game. You know, and you know how big a game that was there. But he left at half time, because he said to my old man, like, how can you let your kid do this? Like, this is crazy. Like, because if you haven't seen the game, it's hard to understand, you know. So definitely culturally it was different, but it was quite rewarding for me. In the last World Cup in 2015, I did several media interviews in Arabic, for Arabic media, and got sent newspaper articles from Lebanon about the team and about myself in Arabic. I can't read or write it, but it was pretty interesting to see how global the game's become now.
Obviously playing for Randwick, which was a great club where I ended up playing as well. Did you understand the history behind Randwick when you first joined, or was it because Paul just said, mate, come down and have a game and see how you go?
I'd gone down and watched games, you know, like growing up, watched a bit of Randwick playing. I was very keen to travel when I was a youngster, right? We weren't very well off, so I saw it as a chance to get a free trip overseas, to be honest, and which is pretty much what happened quickly. But in saying that, there was something about the Saturday afternoon kicking the ball around behind the stand there when we were young fellas and watching the game sometimes. And then once I got down there, I saw taught me a lot about sport and about what a great club is about, because they had a clear identity. You knew who you had to be, or what you were a part of, and you were held accountable for that. And I really enjoyed that. You know, even though I was a little bit different, I'd say, to the normal chaps that were playing footy down there, I think that I really enjoyed the identity that club had.
Yeah, I was quite interested because my background is obviously Italian, and my dad was the same. I think out of 101 tests, I think he came to 2 because he had no idea what was happening. And my mum came to about 3, so very, very interesting that the same sort of parents who have never been involved in sports don't really understand it, do they? So there was never any pressure as well from you, probably not like to perform. You just went off and...
No, I suppose going to a different, not going to a rugby school and not having... Yeah, there was never any of that. It was just like... go and enjoy yourself and rip in, and like all families, analyse all sports on a weekend, watch them on telly, and soccer or rugby league, AFL, whatever it was, cricket, and played a bit of everything. And obviously being near the beach, surfing and surf lifesaving was a big thing as well. And no, my parents never, they just... I think my mum used to lend me $5 to get a taxi to training sometimes. She'd say, "You're supposed to be doing sport. Why aren't you running there?" I'd be going, no, I need to save my energy, right? I'll get a taxi.
Sounds like Mark and Glenn and Gariella. The game has changed, hasn't it? It's changed a lot from when we played. Mm-hmm. We're very fortunate to play in a great era, I think. And do you still analyse the game probably as a coach a lot more now from when you were a player, when you could actually contribute on the field? Or are you looking at it as, okay, well, this is what I've got to look at? And what do you look at now when you look at a game?
I don't think the actual football analysis is any different, because I'm not a huge... I'm not going to be the type who's going to be looking at a lot of computers and vision and all that type of stuff. I like the cutting edge of technology, but you've got to always have it mixed in with what you know about footy. What is different is the mental approach, for sure. Guys are doing it full time now. It's their livelihoods. Trying to balance the joy of the game and playing the game for fun and as a passion, even though it's their living. This is a real difficult issue at the moment, because rugby's still relatively young professionally.
Yeah.
We've only been dealing with that. So the difference between just wanting to play to have a living and to play, or to play to be the best, and that's something that I've really enjoyed being involved in with players, trying to get them motivated and to be better, not motivated to play, motivated that they can be the best. The analysis of the game, the biggest change in the game has been defence. The same principles of attack still ring true no matter what, passing into space, support play, the different things around the interchange of forwards and backs, what strategies to use when to play tight, when to go wide. I think all those things, the looping player, the support lines they run, so all those things are the same. I think the thing that's changed is the defence. It's now much more military. There's been a big influence of rugby league. There's more numbers in the line. It's much more aggressive, and therefore attack's trying to adjust accordingly, and it is changing. It changes, So I reckon we've been playing a certain way, probably a year too long, right? Because we played a certain way that worked for a bit, and then we need to change that because you've got to keep evolving, because the D keeps evolving as well.
It is very different. Can you explain why did you go overseas to coach? What was the reason? Did you have a sort of plan one day you wanted to coach New South Wales and the Wallabies, or I know you said you love travelling, or was it just to go over and experience a bit about life and different cultures?
Well, coach, mate, you're responsible for me going over to coach. You rang me up about going to Italy. I was working at the time with Colette Diddigan. I worked here in Australia with her for a while, and
you had a great job here too, didn't you?
It was great, yeah. Because of rugby, when I went to play rugby overseas as a young fella, both in France and Italy, I learnt the languages. So when I had to come back and get it, and I played all year round, like you used to, 7 years in a row, just travelling around. It was such a good life. And when I decided to come home, I had to get a job. And I had no experience really, and I saw a job ad for Colette, and she wanted someone who spoke French and Italian. I had some cousins up the road who owned a fashion shop. I sort of made the rest up, but I had a great time there. She was unbelievably good to learn from and work with. And then when you rang me about that, I'd never thought about coaching.
So that's my fault? Oh,
yeah,
no.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, I don't say it's your fault. I've been pretty happy with it, I'll tell you. It's been unreal. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to try coaching, I might as well go somewhere where I'm going to be totally out of my comfort zone, in another language. And I don't mind the idea of going to the north of Italy for a while. It sounds good, like good fun. I was single, and I'm a bit like that. I'll just take off every now and then, and it was a great experience. I actually enjoyed it, even though it was difficult because, again, foreign language. I didn't really know what I was doing, and rugby was pretty new to professionalism then. So it was a great setup, great people. So it made it easy for me.
Because I think you played in Castres first, wasn't it?
Played at Castres in the south of France.
Because I think Mark and I came and watched you and Lloydie play one day.
You did. Lloyd came and had a game with us there. That was unreal.
And Lloyd's job was to follow the bombs.
Lloyd's job was to manage the huge estate he was living on, and try and keep. Or he was very good at singing the national anthem, the French national anthem, which they sung at the end of nightclub evenings. So it would have been 2 or 3 o'clock at the end of every nightclub. But the experience there was unreal, and just enjoyed it. And then I came back more for personal reasons. My father was ill, and I wanted to spend some time with him. And then I coached Randwick for a few years, and it's sort of while I had my business here, so it was all amateur, then still club rugby. So it was good grounding for me to learn at that level come second grade and then first grade. So it was good.
And then from there it was up to was it Ireland first, wasn't it?
Up to Leinster, yeah.
So how did you get the call? Did somebody call, or
I think mate, they were obviously a pretty big team, and they'd had a few coaches in. I think I was the 4th coach in 4 years who they appointed.
I think Gary was before you, wasn't he? Yeah,
a couple before me.
Yeah.
There was someone else after him, and Alan Gaffney I think suggested me. So he was coaching at Munster at the time or somewhere over there, and I obviously didn't have the credentials. They had there was much more credentialed candidates for that position, but I must have gone back 4 different times to meet them and speak with them and sort of interviews the Irish Rugby Union and go through all that. And the last meeting was an interesting one. I can't go into the nitty gritty, but when I got that position, that opportunity, right, I had to sort of work out what I was going to do. Because I coached in Italy for a bit and club rugby in Australia, but this was like full on.
It's probably like New South Wales.
Yeah, it's exactly the same, So, and it was good. They were underperformers, and I think that suits me, the turnaround type situation. So I like being in a corner myself. So it was great fun, unreal.
And you took Davud Knox.
Knoxy came, yeah. And he was really for that team at that time. He was exactly the right person. He's out there. He's got different methods, but you've played with him. His rugby knowledge is so sharp, and has a slightly different way of teaching. And the players there who played, in particular the playmakers there, were very influenced by him. Felipe Contempomi, and even now Jonathan Sexton, who's I think he was the World Player of the Year last year. They would have been very influenced by him and what he brought in the early days around attacking, because that's what we wanted to do with the team, is play attacking footy. You know, it's always been our thing, is to try to play attacking footy.
Yeah, because their rugby in those days was a bit like 10-man rugby, wasn't it? Just get the ball, kick it, big forwards.
Well, the iconic team in Ireland was Munster, and that's how they played. So,
and they still play that way now.
Well, they have a lot of success playing that way. So now Leinster's known, they've won 4 European Cups now, known as a running team, a more attacking style team, and they had the players to do it. You've always got to look at who you've got. You know, they had Brian O'Driscoll, Shane Horgan, Contempomi. They had quality backs and back rowers who could make things happen.
And from there, Stade Français?
Yeah, Stade Français after that. So I was 5 years in Ireland.
And was that? Did you find that was just, you've been there just long enough, or were you starting, you wanted another challenge?
No, I think because when you're doing turnarounds, there's a lot of hard muck early on, right? Like, you got to put a lot of people's noses out of joint. And even though I had a core group of players that were like solid, I think it was time for a different type of person, maybe someone a bit gentler, who move in the background a little bit more, probably a bit more technical, because a lot of the other stuff was built on hard yakka, you know, hard work. So yeah, I just thought the time was right. We were planning on having a year off, so I just had I met my wife during the time in Ireland. She's Australian, and then we had our first child over there, and he was 15 months when we were about to have twins, and that was all happening just at the end of that last season. So we were going to have a year off and go and have some time in France, live in Paris for a while, and I had a place over there for ages, and just hang out, you know, do nothing for a while.
Yeah.
And Stade Français coach got fired, like sort of just before I went over there, and I knew a few of the guys, a few of the Argentinians who were in the team, and they gave me a ring and said, "Do you want to come over and do this?" And in retrospect, what I needed to do was what I would have done with any team, is taken the time to research, study the background, the history.
So you do that on every team?
Yeah, if you're going to go there, yeah. It's a big move. I've coached for a while now. It's not like I've been to a lot of teams, you know, so, and I've got great relationships with all the teams I've been with, you know. But it was more, I think, well, this is sort of set up, it's convenient. I didn't do the work I needed to do, and sure enough, it was a turbulent ride. Team went broke in the first year, almost went out of the competition, big for financial reasons, and then we had a change of owner. It was pretty tumultuous, but it was great experience.
Yeah, I was going to
coaching
say,
in another language at that level, then it's really challenging, and because communication's everything in coaching. You can know how things happen and how to coach things, but if you can't communicate that, then you've got nothing, right?
No,
so
definitely.
I could tell sometimes in the dressing room, you know, I had the speeches, I got the words, I knew how, and that's a big part of me, is getting in their heads in the dressing room and stuff like that. But I could tell sometimes the words weren't going through the French guys, you know, it wasn't the right phrases, or it wasn't the Anglo-Saxons, yeah, and the other ones who could catch on. But there was a core group of guys I could never just quite get to, because of, not that I couldn't speak the language, but I could speak the language very well. But you know, those key moments.
Yeah.
It gave me a real insight into how my brain worked, because I don't know if everyone's does like this, but in Stade Français, Sergio Parise was the captain. And obviously
still there now.
He's still there, yeah. He's a great guy, and he's Italian, obviously. So I spoke Italian and French. But if I was in the dressing room, I could not speak Italian to him. My head was so immersed trying to speak. I couldn't get the words out. It's not like I didn't want to. I could not get the words out. And then we'd go to the cafe, 20 metres down the road outside. Fine. It was amazing, and shows you how your brain works a little bit with all that stuff, and how important communication is.
Well, it was interesting because Mark Ella came over and coached in Milan when I was playing, and it was hilarious. You're in the dressing room before a game, and he wanted to swear, but he didn't know the word in Italian, and it gets Massimo Catita to translate a really bad word, and Massimo was trying to say really nice things. You see the forwards going, "What are you trying to say?"
Yeah, translation.
So it was very different then, and I understand what you're talking about, because I went to, obviously, to coach the Sharks, a skills coach in 2005 and 6. And different cultures, different people, and it's interesting. You say words and it doesn't really register. So, obviously, as a head coach, it must have been very frustrating. But obviously, after a while, when the players got to know you, they must have, realised what you were trying to achieve.
Humour's another thing as well. Like, we've got such a dry sense of humour, Aussies. You go different places and you try to translate that same humour to someone, and they look at you as if you're blank. You've just lost $1 million.
And obviously. From there, New South Wales.
Yes.
How did that happen? Who approached you from here?
I'm trying to think if, mate, I don't know if it was any approach in particular. The CEO just rang me one day and said, we've been talking with the board, we're looking at making a change. I think maybe Michael Foley had just left or something like that, so they had to fill a hole there, and I hadn't watched a lot of Super Rugby, so I wasn't really too sure. But I went back and met the guys that were on the selection panel and gave my, when you go to these things, I think your ego tells you, well, they're coming to me, like, I'll just tell me what to do. But the reality is, you've got to go there and convince. In this case, there's no owner, so the board or the people who are involved in running the joint. Because if you can convince, and you put your best foot forward there, because if you can convince them, then you've got them on side straight away, and then you can use that strategy to convince others, and not just say. I think that's a mistake that often happens. Here, have this job and go do this, without going through, like, okay, you can call an interview or whatever, but you still got to convince the people who you're always reporting to someone. So you're always answerable to someone and accountable to someone. So you've got to be able to give a good account of yourself, because then you feel like, okay, well, I've explained to them what I'm doing. They've said yes. Now I'm going ahead with it.
And what's changed, do you think?
In what?
Well, I suppose when you came over, very successful with the Waratahs.
Mm-hmm.
Then you took over the Wallabies and great year 2015 Rugby World Cup runners-up. Have you seen from a coach's point of view, the players, are they looking forward to getting better, do you think, as players? Or do you think that they're sort of, you talked about professionalism, you talked about, yes, they're getting paid. I watch the games, I see someone make a mistake and there's no real emotion on their face for making a mistake. I suppose when we played, we made mistakes, we were a bit upset with each other. As a coach, from where you've come from to where you are now, it's a tough gig, and obviously the results haven't been what everyone wants, and I'm sure that you've got your own standards as well. Do you think that the game has moved on, or do you think we're sort of, especially at Super Rugby level, do you think that we are still not sure the style of rugby that we want to play? And are the players really when you speak to them, really wanted to go that next level, or they just seem quite happy to be where they are at the moment?
Right, that's a big one, right? So I think around the results, if you look at the actual outcomes, 15 was good. Like we got on a roll there. We made huge changes in 16 and 17. We brought in a lot of uncapped players, thinking about getting maybe some of them ahead of their due time. But I felt that because of the playing depth, that we need to get these players in to be ready for 2019, to get the experience under their belt. Now, in those 2 years, 16, 17, we're around 50%, right, which has been pretty much the average of Australia over all time. Last year we had a horror show. No one's saying nothing else apart from that we didn't convert when we needed to at some key moments, against Argentina and Brisbane, one pass, that result's over, But there's not excuses. That's just more symptoms of of that extra focus you need to be better, to get the right decision more often than not, the right play, the right pass, the right opportunity, and making the right call at the right time. In Super Rugby, over the last period, we haven't had a huge amount of success, and so sometimes that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, so you lose self-belief, you lose confidence about going out and winning the key moments, right? There's a lot of chat about let's compete and let's go through the process. I still don't know what that means. Let's go through the processes. I watch every interview. The game has got to be about preparing yourself as best you can to win, because you wouldn't be playing the game. You got to enjoy yourself as well. But enjoying yourself's a lot better when you win. You enjoy yourself a lot more when you win, and I'm more than aware of that. Now, I think that sometimes players get lost a bit in the fact that of all the noise on the outside, like lots of noise, this is happening, or Super Rugby, or not a big crowd, or not a whatever. It's all irrelevant, mate. It's like on game day, on training days and on game day, I'm going to play the best I possibly can. That attitude is something that this year I want to make sure that we are fully installed with that attitude. Every training session, every game, we're there to win the contest at training, but know how to win the contest as well, not just through brute force, but be smart with decision making, be creative in the way we play the game. And I think we got to break that cycle of just competing, get on a roll and break that cycle.
Do you think that we are too structured as a team at the moment?
Mate, you mean in Wallabies or Super Rugby?
Well, I mean, Super Rugby, I said I watched the weekend, the Rebel 66-0. We got 5 Wallaby backs playing, and, as you know, it's not easy to play at that level. Then you don't score any points, and you've got to go to the next level up. And as we all know, it's a bit higher up there. And then you've got to turn around and play half the guys you just played against. Do the players... Do you get them to say, okay, how do you think you're playing? What can you do better? Yeah. Do you ask...
All the conversations are going on, don't worry. Like all that self-evaluation, there's no arrogance around the fact that someone's naive of where performances are. They're good lads, and, guys cop a bit of a bagging every now and then, you know what I mean? But they're good lads, they're genuine. They want to do better, and sometimes when it's not going your way, you've just got to work it out. You've got to find a way to get it done, right? Not look for a way out, find a way to get it done. And I know that we're talking about attack here, backs and all that, but the game, mate. Nothing happens without the platform being laid. And I'm not talking about forwards. I'm talking about contact, aggression, go forward. Now, go forward's different. You were an aggressive player in a different way to what I would have been an aggressive player. Your aggression was footwork, getting into a space, being elusive, but always at the opposition. You watch Origin the other night, the team going forward, even in defence, is winning. When Queensland are coming a swarm on New South Wales in defence, it's the team going forward that's putting the pressure on. And we got to... I'm not sure about the whole structure, non-structure thing, because for me, this is what they mean. Structure means we're in position, and non-structure means we're out of position. So sometimes the game means you're out of position and you've got to play. Do we set up this play now, that play then? No, we don't. We don't. We just say, this is where we are on the field. You've got options to play all these different things.
Okay, do you think the options are being... The guys who are making the options, do you think they're doing the right calls in that moment?
I don't think any of that's relevant, mate. I think it's about put the ball out in front, get the right depth, run all the stuff that is basic and the fundamentals of the game are the key, and then the platform of aggression and going forward all the time, going forward in defence, going forward in attack. The rest of the stuff works. I think both formulas can work. based off that premise, right? So you're on the front foot. If you want to play a structured game where you go from A to B to C, that can work, right? I think if you look at previous eras in Australia, where a lot of people would say that the 99 team played a bit more structured.
It was very structured.
But they won the World Cup. They were on the go forward. They were aggressive. They had guys that were laying a platform. And I think the style of game is the coach's decision. You know that I'll always be more for the attacking style and the slightly, I suppose, less structured in your way, but I'll sort of address that in a minute. But everything's got to be about getting on the front foot, getting in the opposition's face, whether it's with footwork, elusiveness, defence, go forward, and then the rest comes off the back of that. I think, as opposed to structured and unstructured, the words are probably, for me this year, more predictability and unpredictability. You know, I think we've definitely got to move towards being more unpredictable.
Well, that used to be our strength, I think, even at Randwick. Yeah. You know, I mean, every team we played, we weren't scared of them, they were scared of us because they had no idea what was going to happen.
Often we didn't know what was going to happen.
No, well, that was a good thing part about the game.
That's right. That's when you can be unpredictable.
Yeah, I've done a lot of coaching the last 12 months with kids, and on the weekend I went to watch the under-12 state championships down at Camden, and my son Jason played for Illawarra. It was interesting watching the teams. Every forward pack were really well drilled. You know, a lot of them were just hit up, but our back lines were so deep, and I don't think there was one back line that actually hit the advantage line once because they're standing still and passing. Have you seen much of? I know you're busy as anything. Yeah. Have you seen a lot of the back lines? And what my job was in New South Wales to go around. If I saw something, to go around all the coaches and say, "Listen, your number 10's 10 metres back from the scrum. It should be 5. Try and get him to run onto the ball." So at least the advantage line used to come into play when we played. That was vital for the style of rugby. Was you hit the advantage line, your forwards are there to keep on going. Now we seem to be well behind the advantage line. And, you know, I've sent you a few videos. I don't know if you really appreciate it, but I sent a few videos, and there was one against the Rebels and the Bulls where Genya passed the ball to Cooper. It didn't look like he was going to actually get the ball. The ball went back behind the halfway line, and the scrum was 5 metres in the opposition half. And we tried to do a move, and we ended up 20 metres behind where the scrum was. And you sit there and you go, I don't know what they were trying to achieve. Instead of running at the opposition, they were sort of waiting for the opposition to come to them. Have you seen a lot of that, and what's to change that? How do you change when you got obviously 4 different teams, 4 different coaches coaching the backs? Do they trying to all play the same sort of game, or are they all individually doing things differently, which really doesn't help you, I suppose, when you want to get them all together and to play a style of rugby that sometimes is unpredictable?
Well, no, they're not playing the same way. That's the answer there. But I'm not expecting them to play the same way, to be honest. Like, we got to create a diverse type of playing footy, because we're going to have all different conditions, and we've got to have all different types of players, mate. There's not the point in having the same player all across the park. You know, what you could do compared to, let's say, what David Knox could do or what Gary Ella could do are totally different things, you know. I think that what that tells me is that when they're all playing different, when they do come to the national team, you've got to go off, but very, very simplicity, fundamentals, getting things right. Now, that I think last year in particular, I needed to pay more attention to. I don't mind where guys are starting, but it's where they're catching the ball, where they're finishing is where the issue is, right? So that's pretty simple. That's just about changing a mindset, and like I said before, like run at the opposition, run at them. Like whether it's in attack or defence, keep going at the opposition.
Yeah, it just seems to be as I said, what I'm watching just seems to be a problem where, you know, when a lot of these teams train, they don't train against anybody. So all of a sudden, when they're playing a game, it's happened a couple of occasions, they just get the ball and pass along the line without actually running at somebody, and the defence goes across and creams the poor winger, and everyone says, geez, the defence is good. And I said, well, you know, no one really ran at someone to stop him to create the space on the outside. But that's obviously what they've been taught at training as well. I mean, last year we had Stevie Larkham as a back coach. A lot of controversy about what happened and all that. Now I see he's with the 20s. He's off to Munster. As a back,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was in the paper this morning, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
But do you think that as when you got coach and assistant coach, do you want the backs coach? You say you're the full coach. Do you want everyone to be on the same mindset as you as a head coach, or you want him to be an individual to say, right, I know what I want you to do, off you go and do it? Or is there, right, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want the players to be, this is what I want the players to do as a head coach? Or do you sort of say, well, look, that's not really working, can we try something different? Do you actually have your input into it? Or
yeah, no, we want to have a united way of playing the game, obviously, you know what I mean? And then each person comes up with the best way to deliver that, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? So we're all always talking together and discussing footy and watching footy and trying to be on the same page. And there'll be times where you disagree as well, but then you just commit, you get on with it, and that's happened a million times in footy too. So the coaching structure side of things is evolving as well. I'm changing too in the way I like to, in what I'm looking for. Whereas over this last year or so, I think I've changed. Again, I think we need more less strategy coaching and more player focus, more individual focus on the players' fundamentals and how in decision making, execution or decision making, so that they're seeing so they're feeling when the pressure comes on, when I say pressure from the defense or whatever, that they know they've done it before, and they're, like you're saying, training. You want to make sure that you've seen all of these situations before, so that you can deal with them.
Yeah, but if they're playing like, we know when you play for New South Wales, Queensland, you go back and you play a different style, and they're giving you different skills. Do you find it hard to, when you get to the next level, like the Wallaby level, what you've got now, that you might have to sort of undo a few things that they've done at that level with the provinces?
Mate, I think that I think all round, we've got to go back to coaching more of just those skills. I think that we coach too much strategy, right? So any strategy is going to work when you're on the front foot, your passes are out in front, you're running onto the ball, you've got good support play, you've got good body height at rucks and mauls, you're hitting guys hard, leg drive, any strategy is going to work. 10-man rugby, 15-man rugby, total rugby, the lot, no kicking even, you could use it. But everyone's into kicking. I know that in the TARS that year, I remember saying to the guys that the teams that are winning the comp have all been the highest. I think it was the Chiefs before us a couple of years. They've all been up in the top 3 of kicking the most, right? We're going to win the comp kicking the least. So, I don't know if even that was possible, but that's what happened, because any style work that can work if you've got Cliff Palu, Will Skelton, Jacques Poqueta all hitting the line, Kepu, Tatafu Pallotta now move, setting a platform, our hard running backs with footwork, going at the line, being smart as well about what options you use. I think any strategy is going to work behind the key fundamentals. So passing, catching, footwork into contact, support play, tackling, ruck work, huge area in the game I think that we need to work on. All those things in any team, you think that they would be nearly the same. I know some teams maybe don't ruck the man, they ruck over the ball or something like that, but you think you're always going to get purchase if everyone focuses on simplicity.
You mentioned Will Skelton. Why did he go overseas? Did he just want to have a bit of a rest, or you wanted to learn more, just different style of rugby?
So, mate, I had obviously, Will came through with me at the TARS, and Mate, I just think he wanted a different experience. You did it yourself, you know. He's looking for a different experience in life. And sometimes guys need to grow up in a different way. They come, you know, I've seen many guys go away and come back much better, much more rounded, because you're seeing a different, you know, it's pretty good here. You know, guys it's a great lifestyle being a footy player here, and the season's a bit shorter. It's not as long. The winters aren't as cold.
Well, we know that.
Yes, and you know there's a different mindset, in particular to the forward play in Europe.
Yeah,
and you often find that a little experience over there goes a long way for those lads. So yeah, and then there's the money, right? Too. I don't know if that was the instance in Will's case, but a lot of guys are getting paid extraordinary amounts of money, mate. I know that you said that we struggled over the last few years, and yes, we have, but we've got over 100 Australian players playing rugby overseas. I've looked at the lists. I'd say between 50 and 60 of those could play Super Rugby. That's 4 whole teams. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to come straight in and play in those teams, but more depth, more competition for places, more hunger, more. You know, if it's whether it's your livelihood or it's your passion, more hunger to get the job done. Right, more. You see, the money that's coming from, it's a real issue for us to deal with. In the longer term, forget about now. They're only going to get bigger. TV money is only going to get bigger. More wealthy owners are going to come into the game. It's going to take creative thinking. In Australia, we need to become like the Silicon Valley of rugby. You know, we need to be innovative. We need to change, whether it's our business model or the way we do our competitions or whatever, and also the way we play. We need to be creative as well. That's how we've always played.
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously, that's why I think we came through that great era. We were going through that change where, you know, with the 77 schoolboys and Randwick Rugby, and I remember people saying when Randwick Rugby was good, New South Wales was good, the Wallabies were good. That just brings me to think with club rugby. Do you believe that club rugby players should be paid? And the only reason I'm saying that, I went down to watch Randwick on Saturday against University, and it was like watching men versus boys, because I think Randwick's got a lot of young colts in, and because Randwick don't pay their players, where a lot of these other clubs are, and they're starting to poach the 100th cap player sort of thing, where, you know, like in the old days was you need some old guys who've been there, done that. And do you think that's really benefit for club rugby, or do you think that everyone should be, you know, you play for Randwick because of the history, you don't play because you're getting paid? It's a different way of playing these days.
I don't think that I think with the universities it's different, because guys can get an education, and that's you want that to happen, mate. No one you know, I think Randwick have Uni of New South Wales behind them. Yep. So anyone that can get an education through sport, I think, is a good thing, because they play sport, they get educated, they've got something going on after, you know, while they're playing footy, and then after footy as well. And that is great. What I think needs to happen is that we have to get our governing bodies to invest in club rugby in a serious way. I've come from that heartland. I'm probably going to get knocked out for saying it, you know what I mean? Although no one will be listening to your podcast, would they, Camp?
Well, I'm not sure, mate. I'm not sure. I actually hope I'm taping this. Oh, yes, I am. Sorry, yes. It's my second one, so give me a break.
So, but that's where we need to go to our roots, right? Because that's where, once our roots are strong, everything else goes from there. And it'll take a while, maybe, to rebuild the game like that. But once all those players are playing for a special trophy, and that all the volunteers and families around those teams are seeing that we're playing for something special, just like it was. And I'm not going back. I'm not one of those olden day guys like, hope is the mantra of all sports people. They're all hoping to win something, right? Hoping to lift a trophy at all levels, whether it's I see my kid come home from the under sixes, and I don't tell anyone. I think they just give the best man of the match to everyone each week. But when he comes home, he's so happy he's got it in his hands, lifts a trophy. He's taken a photo with a big smile on his face, and that fuels the players of the future. Those experiences will fuel the players of the future of being part of a competition that is really like, we're into this big time. We've let that go, and there's some great people around both. I know Brisbane and Sydney. I know them in a bit more depth, who are doing some great things around the footy of club rugby. But our game needs reunification at all levels, right? Yes, there'll be blues, we'll have arguments, all those types of things, that'll happen. But we need reunification at all levels so we can be stronger in what is the most competitive sports market in the world, really, considering our population, and to continue the support of the state teams and the Wallabies at the highest possible level, not just every 4 years when a World Cup comes around.
Well, it's interesting because I've travelled around and I do clinics with kids. I'm helping Bry's 4th division, so I'm helping the 6s, 8s, 10s, 12s, and the Colts and all that. So the Colts are in the final. Last year, the only game they won was the last game of the year, and this year they're in the final. So, and all I'm trying to get them to do is simple, basic skills. With the kids, and it's probably a bit different when we play because rugby was on free-to-air TV. Everyone knew the Wallabies, and we were playing a great style of rugby. Everyone knew Randwick. One of the main concerns that I've seen is that when I go and coach any kid after I say, okay, what's your name? Michael, what position, number 9, who's your favourite player? Well, I haven't got one. And I said, okay. And you find that's generally the problem because no one watches. So therefore, you talked about, come and win the medal and all that, but I think it's the players, because a lot of them haven't got Fox or it's not on free-to-air, that they are doing other things. They're not really sitting there watching or wanting to be like people. And that's when I was, as I said, on the weekend, I spoke to most of the teams and I asked them who their favourite player was, and a lot of them struggled because a lot of them are leagueies as well. But that if you've got people who want to be like someone, they're the generation we want, because they're going to watch and learn and try if they see it on TV. And I suppose if you look at the performance of our Super Rugby sides, they haven't been fantastic. It hasn't been really entertainments. And I suppose by the people going, you can see that there's a bit of obviously there's a little bit of problems off the fields. But on the fields, the kids still struggle to find a hero who they want to be like. And it must be hard because, you're at the top level now. You're trying to win a World Cup. Every 4 years is great. But is the entertainment factor for you important to grow the game? Or is it more about, guys, we won that game, doesn't matter, we won by 1 point, great? Or are you looking at, guys, we are in the entertainment business. If we entertain, more people will come and watch, and we're going to get more people playing the game.
No, I'm not into the entertainment side of things. What I'm into is that entertainment will come when your team plays like it's supposed to play. So if we're a running team, we deliver that all the time, and we play running footy, and sometimes it's going to cost us, sometimes it's not. And if there's a 10-man team, they've got a support base too. Yep. They might like playing the game that way, their support base, and that could be that's their version of entertainment. So yes, okay, entertainment maybe, but there's all different types of entertainment. But you've got to be true to who you are. So if this is the way we're going to play the game, and we're going to play with this year with more unpredictability, a fair bit of risk, I'd say, and as much attack as we can, considering you're playing against the best defences going round, right? And yeah, a bit of variety in that way. So that's going to be our thing, more creative in that way. But every team's got its own thing. So as long as you're true to that and your supporters know who you are and they can see you play like that. At the Tars, I remember telling the lads we had an identity piece, really strong inside of the team, but we'd never put it out on a website or anything like that, because we say that our supporters should only know our identity by watching us play, right? They should be able to say some of the things that we say in here just by watching us play. That is important, and that's what will get people more. There's other issues around Super Rugby which are more difficult, Campo, like what you said about, the TV situation. Even though I think the Fox broadcast is really quite good, just a lot of people, not as many people have it as we'd like to have it, right? But also, you don't get games in a row at home. You could be away from home for 6 weeks. There's games on at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's difficult to build a supporter base in those environments, and
but it used to happen. We used to play in our day, in those days as well, the Grand Slam and all that sort of stuff. That's what I mean by the entertainment factor. When you start,
that was our style of play.
I know.
Right? So it's not like you were going don't tell me Jonesy was saying to you guys before, let's go out and entertain the masses.
No.
You were going to play your way of footy, and that was entertaining, and that's our way of footy. We want to be the same. We're a product of the former Australian teams as well. There's no one came one day and drew a line and said, we don't want to be like those guys anymore. Different coaches have had different methods with the Australian team across many years, but one constant has always been the desire to play running footy. And if you go overseas, and you've been over there a lot, they always have that thing about Australia is, hang on, they could turn up on this day and start going and watch out. And I know that no one's given us much of a chance this year, but we'll be right in there, I'm telling you, because we'll be very clear on how we want to play, and we'll be prepared to back ourselves.
No, that's very important. I think it's like any coach. You really want the best, for the team as well.
Mate, it's the interesting thing there is I'm from your era, right? So I loved it. I enjoyed it. I was part. So if anything, I'm looking to try to play footy more like that. The other way, many of the other conditions around have changed, right? How the players are brought through, the opposition. Technology, all those there's a lot of things around it have changed. So in fact, probably trying to play that way is even more difficult than it was back then, right? So, but that's the goal. We want to keep the continuity in what the Wallaby jersey is about, always. We may not be perfect at it, but we're always looking to do it.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think just watching the Waratahs, I think that the Brumbies knew exactly everything they were going to do. They're so pre-staged, and that's what I mean now. How do you get those guys to say, right, this is what we're going to do now. If there's an opportunity, I want you to try it. We talk about that Argentine game. There was one pass, we could have won a game. The difference from one pass and no pass. Just little things, as turn a game.
Yep.
And you can see, and I remember last year, going to the All Black test in Auckland when I went in the dressing room and all that, and the guys were obviously very down. And I think on the Tuesday I saw Bernard Foley at Rugby Australia House having a coffee, and I said, "How are you, mate?" He said, "I'm still down." I said, "Well, I'm still peed off and I don't even play anymore." And I said, "Mate, that time that you took the ball to the line tower and said you dummy and you scored," he said, "Yeah, well, we found him as a weakness." And I said, "Well, why didn't you do it again? It just seemed to do one thing, it works. Okay, well, we move on now," instead of saying, "Well, actually, there's more opportunities." You can't coach that, really, can you? It's up to the player to.
You got to give him a situation to practice making it. Like, he's got to be in that situation more often at training. That's all you can do. You can't say, do this, do that, mate.
No, I understand, but it was just interesting when he said, we found him as a weakness. But when you did it once, it was like, okay, well, that worked. Now let's
looking to unpick different solutions, mate. I think, Campo, with everything that's been going on and off the field, the key for this year is about having a really clear focus on the simple way we want to do things and blocking out all the other noise. And there'll be plenty of that, and it's going to continue. And I think you can even hear from my attitude in here, I'm really clear about it.
Yeah.
So I'm very eager to get the lads in and start getting ready for it,
You've had a couple of camps this year quickly, injury-wise. People got injured in the first camp. David Pocock's retired from Super Rugby. Obviously, he's going to focus on the World Cup. a player like that who's not going to play a lot of rugby, is he going to be a benefit, do you think? Or is he going to... I know he's a very dedicated rugby player.
Yeah.
But do you think that not that match fitness might struggle? Or do you think because you've only got a certain amount of games that he'll get...
I think any other player, you could question that, but him... He'll be ready for sure. He'll be right to go. He's done it before. In fact, he had a year where he missed a lot of footy and he jumped in. He's got the experience. He's been there before. He knows how to get himself ready. I have no doubt that he's going to be ready for it.
One thing I have mentioned to you a year ago, in that have we got a good number 8 in this country? To sort of take the pressure off 9 and 10 to give just extra seconds. You know, like if you look at Aaron Smith, Kieran Reid and Barrett, I mean, you've really got to watch the three. You don't know what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. I did mention, I think, our number 8s, we haven't really had a guy who could pass and just relieve the pressure.
Yep.
Have you found someone?
I think there's a few young number 8s that are coming up through the ranks. You know, they've... I think our back row will look different this year. The options will look different to what we've had in the past. Maybe we need to be a bit more detailed in the work we do with the number 8 himself, but we're going to have some ball running, ball passing, delivery type option players. I think if you just look at the scene, even though he's been playing a bit of 6, I think a guy like Rob Valentini, he's a smart player. He can play there. Naisarani's a big, strong ball running player. Even Jack Dempsey and Lucan Salakai Lotto from Queensland, they're playing on the flank. They'll give us different options around the back row as a whole, whereas last time we were dedicated to playing with Michael and David together. This time there's going to be a bit more competition around that and some much more specific work with the number 8s in what you're saying, mate. Yeah. Exactly. I'm a big believer in that.
Curtly Beale, a big player for the team, isn't he?
Yeah, he did an amazing job at the last World Cup.
Yeah, he did. You can still see that, coming from that background of given options, and you still see the players still aren't sure when Curtly runs sideways what the players should give him an option. And I think that's where Curtly and Folau played very well, because every time Folau knew Curtly was going, there was something happening. Do you think that's going to be a bit missing, because they're still looking for, Curtly's obviously looking to do something, to try, but the other guys are still waiting, instead of really just backing themselves and saying, well, give me a short ball. And
mate, I think that'll be solved with dealing with some of the issues around the depth of our play, like starting deeper and finishing flatter. So to allow the options, and we'll have some real simple principles that we're going to play with this year. Like I said, we're going to change our look of how we attack. We always had that in situ to what we were going to play. So it will create a different sort of environment for support players. So we'll see how they go. They should be able to read him, because if I'm watching him on telly or at the game, you can tell when he's showing the ball what he wants. You just got to get on. We've got to start letting people make those reads and understand that there's no risk to that at all.
Okay, Michael. After the World Cup, have you got any plans? Have you heading off anywhere, or you look like tight-lipped to me?
No, mate. I'm clear as day. So I'm doing nothing before the World Cup except focusing on the World Cup.
No,
and like I've
after
said,
the World Cup.
No, when I say that, I'm not planning anything for after.
Okay.
I think that's a mistake. I've said publicly, so it's not win. I have the right to stay, if of course they want me. Yeah. Right. They wouldn't be the first that wouldn't want me, But no win. Well, we come second last time.
Yeah.
Got to come first this time.
There's only one way to go, isn't it?
I want to have skin in the game here.
Yeah.
I want to stay coaching Australia. I love it. I love the team. I love playing. I love being back here. I want to keep coaching. But I think that I've got to get some skin in the game.
Just the last question. If you won the World Cup and they said you can stay on in a different role, would you look at changing the way the game is being played, at the skill factor? What would you, because of your knowledge and being up the top, what would you want to see
take
change?
away the hypothesis of if this happened?
I know
whatever. What would I want to see change? I want to see coaches. If there was one thing I'd want to see, would be a comprehensive program of coaching coaches at all levels, from under 6, because I see my own kids coaches, right through on 7 or 8 basics.
Sounds like me.
Catch, run, footwork, tackle, ruck, those basic things. And then obviously as you go up, clear things about these basics, fundamentals. When you play in Australia, this is how we do it. Not copy anyone else, because we've got great history of being good at those things. And we need to invest. It's the number one thing in our coaches. If I had the money myself, I would bloody do it myself, because if we did that nationwide, we'd have a bunch of coaches that are producing not only great players, but getting our players, kids, teenagers, adults, have fun and learn when they go to training.
Well, that's what I've been doing for the last 12 months, and I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. But
Enjoy it.
Michael, thank you very much for coming in today. All the best for the World Cup.
Thanks, mate.
You've been listening to David Campese talking rugby with his mates, and Michael Cheika was my guest today. We'll see you next time.
To hear more great stories from David Campese and his mates, be sure to hit subscribe or follow, and find out more at davidcampese.com.